I hear President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni arguing ever so eloquently that Uganda, given our history, can only survive on the basis of a no-party system. But I hear the West telling him equally eloquently and a little bit more forcefully that we do not agree with you. We do not agree with you, and your safety not only requires but demands that you must reintroduce multi-party politics. So Yoweri Kaguta Museveni concedes. And he's not the only one who is conceding. Everywhere we are conceding. Ultimately, all the countries now have plural party politics. And that is where the commercialization of politics begins. That is where money enters into the political arena. That is where we begin to eliminate ideas from politics, and we now ask ourselves, who is the leader? And now that is the time when people get into political office for the purpose of feathering their nests, because the electoral process becomes an expensive process, and that is where we begin to lose our direction. So as I speak today, one of the greatest qualifications in African politics is the size of your pocket. You know, in 1995, the then Tanzanian former head of state, Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, was invited by his party, Chama cha Mapinduzi, to speak about who was to be the leader to succeed his successor, Ali Hassan Mwinyi. He took his audience down memory lane. He reminded his audience that when they led the nation from colonization, the prime motivator was that they would liberate their people. They were servant leaders, he said. Speaking of Tanzania, he said, we met in Arusha and came up with the Arusha Declaration. And in the Arusha Declaration, we said that in order to be a leader, there must be some ideals that govern you. And there must be some taboos which you must never embrace in order to be a true leader. He said that in those days when you joined politics and you had a lot of money, the people would ask, where have you gotten the money from? He reminded his audience that in those days, when you went to the public and you appeared to have more money than you could legitimately explain, the electorate would say, you are a thief, and they would not elect you. But he regretted in 1995 that things had changed and that the major qualification was how much money you had. And the more money you had, the more attractive you are to the electorate. In other words, the cancer of money and the politics of money and money bags reared its ugly head after the advent of multi-party politics. And I want to say that is now comfortably sitting in the bedrooms and in the sitting rooms of our political parties. How can we liberate ourselves from it, and what is it? You know, what I'm about to say is neo-Marxist, but I'm not myself a Marxist, and I've never been one. But the Marxists had beautiful slogans, one of which was, the safety of the bourgeois demands that the proletariat be kept in the most profound ignorance. If I step it down into English, it simply means that the safety of the leader demands that the people be kept in poverty. And that is what happens in Africa. In Europe and America, during elections, they go around kissing babies and appearing to be nice. In Africa, they go around distributing rice and maize, appearing to be nice. In other words, the typical African politician impoverishes the people so that they may become attractive to them. And in order to be attractive, you must appear to have money. And this is why those in the political arena in many African countries have an insatiable appetite for things. Primitive accumulation of things is the rule in many African countries. A friend of mine once corrected me when I said that in Africa there is corruption. He said, no, in Africa there is no corruption. Corruption presupposes there is some element of intelligence in theft. What we see in Africa is looting and theft on an industrial scale. And what I'm saying is not new to us. I never knew myself that there is any magic in the ballot box, that today, if I'm a pauper, upon being elected as a councillor or a member of parliament, suddenly my life changes dramatically. In fact, you younger people are now in the business of betting whether one English football team will beat the other, which I discourage. That is not where the jackpot lies. The jackpot lies in you being elected a member of parliament in many African countries. If you are elected a member of parliament or a councillor in many African countries, that is your passport to El Dorado, the land of gold. And the reason why that appetite is ever so sharpened, the members of parliament who are here will tell you that when they want to retreat to their rural homes like they will on Friday, they cannot just walk into their rural homes. There will be droves of people waiting for them. And when their cars are seen, they say, behold, the mobile ATM has arrived. Behold. And therefore, when one is appointed into any public office, because of the demands of the electorate, and this relationship between the African member of parliament or the African president and the electorate is a symbiotic relationship. It is symbiotic in a very perverse manner. And I suspect I'm misusing the word symbiotic, but I'll use it or misuse it nevertheless, to the extent that it explains my point. What happens is that it appears that the electorate has allowed the so-called leader, because many of them are misleaders, to remain in their positions of power and to acquire as much as they can, on the understanding that periodically their loot will be shared with them. It is some kind of Robin Hoodism of a latter-day kind. And this Robin Hood kind of politics is a little bit different, at least from my understanding. Robin Hood robbed the rich in order to share with the poor. But our latter-day African Robin Hoods are in the business of robbing from the poor in order to give a pittance to the very poor. And this is what we are talking about today when we talk about commercialization. So that if you ask any typical African politician, how much does it cost you to be elected into parliament, they'll tell you it is in the millions. It is in the millions, and the millions they spend is perhaps 10 times more than they'll ever earn through their legitimate salaries. And I ask myself, if your salary in 5 years is going to be 1 billion Ugandan shillings, why should you spend 5 billion Ugandan shillings to get into that office? There must be something that we do not see, but you see, and I know what it is. What it is that getting into the office of the member of parliament, or indeed any other political office in Africa, is a guarantee that things will come. So that in many African countries, the politician is the major tenderpreneur. The politician is the gatekeeper. The politician is the one who receives the guests. He is the tax collector informally, aside from the URA. And in this regard, therefore, we must commercialize politics. We may blame the politicians, but what about the electorate? The electorate also is to be blamed. The electorate has insatiable thirst and hunger for things that they have not worked for. They have been trained and they no longer listen to ideas. My good friend Norbert Mao, who I was told was here, I do not know whether he is here, will tell you, not that I have talked to him this morning, but he'll tell you that one of the pains that one has to endure when you confront your typical African electorate is to convince the electorate that ideas count for something. Many times when you address the electorate and you are waxing eloquent, telling them, when I'm elected, I'm going to ensure that we have good health services. We are going to ensure that we have good schools. We are going to ensure that we create opportunities for innovation and invention and create opportunities for young men and women. They are waiting for you to finish. They will tell you, we hear you. We know you are going to do all those beautiful things. But in the intervening period, I must eat. And therefore, no matter how beautiful your ideas are, if you don't carry money on that day, your ideas, like the elephant before them, will never fly.